The war fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of Earth's solar system. 200 warships, each one carrying enough firepower to crack a moon in half. War Marshal stood on the bridge of his flagship and watched the blue-green world spin slowly on his. It looked peaceful. They always did before the conquest began. "Send the standard message," ordered. His voice carried the rough growl that all males developed after their first decade of military service. "Tell them to surrender or be destroyed." The communications officer tapped at his console with clawed fingers. The message went out in every language the database contained. It was simple and direct. Submit to the Dominion. Serve the Dominion for the rest of time. Resist and die. Had given this order 17 times before. 17 star systems. 17 civilizations that had tried to fight back. All of them had fallen eventually. Some quickly, some slowly, but all of them had learned the same lesson. The Dominion could not be stopped. The response from Earth came 6 hours later. That was faster than most species managed. Usually they spent days arguing among themselves, trying to find some way out, some miracle that would save them. Humans seemed to have decided quickly. "They refuse," the communications officer reported. "They say they will defend their world." Nodded, "Then we begin." The war lasted 3 months. The humans fought better than expected. Their technology was less advanced, but they used it cleverly. They set traps. They hit supply lines. They made the pay for every planet in their system, every moon, every orbital station. But in the end, numbers and superior weapons won. The fleet pushed into Earth's orbit. Landing craft descended on every continent. Soldiers marched through the streets of London, New York, Beijing, Lagos. Humanity's armies fell back, broken and defeated. Expected the usual things to happen next. Riots, guerrilla attacks, desperate last stands. The humans would fight until they couldn't fight anymore, and then they would hate. The hatred would simmer for years, maybe decades, but eventually they would accept their place in the Dominion. That was how it always went. But the humans did something different. They sighed. First noticed it when he walked through the streets of Geneva, where the humans had established their central government building. His security team surrounded him, weapons ready. Humans lined the streets, watching the soldiers pass. There were no weapons in sight, no signs of aggression. But there was something in their faces that made uncomfortable. They looked sad, not afraid, not angry, just disappointed. An old man stood near the front of the crowd. He watched approach and slowly shook his head. The gesture was small, but saw it clearly. The old man's eyes held no fear, no hatred, just a deep, quiet sadness that seemed to go down to his bones. Looked away and kept walking. The feeling in his chest was unfamiliar. It felt almost like shame, which made no sense. He had nothing to be ashamed of. He was a conqueror, a warrior. He had done what warriors do. The next meeting with human leaders was scheduled for the following day. They had set up their headquarters in what the humans called the United Nations building. It seemed appropriate. This was where humanity had once tried to govern itself as one species. Now it would serve the Dominion. Ambassador arrived exactly on time. She was a small woman, old by human standards, with gray hair and deep lines around her eyes. She walked into the meeting room without guards, just her and a single aide carrying a briefcase. Gestured to a chair, "Sit." She sat down carefully, placing her hands on the table. "Thank you for meeting with me, War Marshal." "You will give me the locations of all military installations," said, "all weapons stockpiles, all government officials who might organize resistance. You will cooperate fully with the Dominion." "Yes," Ambassador said, "we will cooperate. We have already prepared all the information you requested." She nodded to her aide, who opened the briefcase and pulled out several data storage devices. He placed them on the table and stepped back. Stared at the devices. It had been that easy. No negotiation, no demands, no final plea for mercy. "That's everything?" he asked. Everything, Ambassador confirmed. You won, we lost. We understand how this works. Picked up one of the devices and turned it over in his hand. Something about this felt wrong. You are cooperating without conditions. What conditions could we possibly make? Ambassador smiled, but there was no happiness in it. You have the guns, you have the ships, you have us beaten. We're not stupid enough to think we can fight anymore. Good, put the device back on the table. Then we understand each other. Do we? Ambassador tilted her head slightly. War Marshal, may I ask you something? Felt that uncomfortable feeling in his chest again. Speak. When your people first developed faster-than-light travel, what did they hope to find? The question caught him off guard. What do you mean? When you looked up at the stars, knowing you could reach them, what did you dream you would discover? Narrowed his eyes. Resources, territory, subjects for the Dominion. Ambassador nodded slowly. She reached into her aide's briefcase again and pulled out a small object, a golden disc attached to a plaque. She set it on the table between them. We launched this into space in 1977, she said. More than 300 years ago, it was attached to a probe called Voyager. We sent it out with greetings in 55 languages. We included music, pictures of Earth, diagrams showing where we are in the galaxy. She traced her finger along the plaque's markings. We sent it out hoping someone would find it, someone like you. We dreamed that whoever found it would come to visit us. We imagined meeting them, learning from them, sharing everything we knew. She looked up at. We built protocols for first contact. We wrote speeches. We composed symphonies for the occasion. Children everywhere on Earth went asleep dreaming about the day we would meet someone from the stars. Stared at the golden disc. That was foolish. Yes, Ambassador agreed. I suppose it was. She stood up slowly, her movements careful. We will cooperate with your occupation, War Marshal. You will find us obedient, compliant. We will cause you no trouble. Good, said again, but the word felt hollow. Ambassador picked up the golden disc and held it for a moment. We had such hopes, she said softly. We really believed that anyone who could reach the stars would have learned what we learned, that there were better ways, that cooperation brings more than domination ever could. She set the disc back down. We were wrong, but we weren't wrong to hope. She walked toward the door. Her aide followed. Ambassador called out. She turned back. You are disappointed in us, said. The words came out before he could stop them. Ambassador's smile was sad, gentle, the kind of smile a parent gives a child who has broken something precious. Yes, War Marshal, we are very disappointed. She left, the door closed behind her. Sat alone in the empty room, staring at the golden disc. He should have felt victorious. He had conquered Earth without significant resistance. The humans had surrendered peacefully. Everything had gone according to plan. But that look in Ambassador's eyes stayed with him. That deep, quiet sadness. Not the sadness of defeat, something else. Something that made his victory feel strangely empty. He picked up the disc and studied it. The humans had sent this into space, hopping for friends. They had dreamed of meeting fellow travelers among the stars. They had imagined something better than what they got. Put the disc down and stood up. He had work to do, an occupation to organize, a population to control. He pushed the uncomfortable feelings away and focused on his duties. But late that night, alone in his quarters, he found himself thinking about the golden disc, about the humans who had sent it into space 300 years ago, full of hope, about Ambassador's gentle, disappointed smile, about how that smile had made him feel smaller than any weapon ever had. The feeling wouldn't go away. It sat in his chest like a weight growing heavier with each passing hour. Outside his window, the lights of Geneva glowed against the darkness. Somewhere down there, millions of humans were going to sleep under occupation, carrying that same quiet disappointment in their hearts. Had faced armies without flinching. He had stared down death itself and never wavered. But this soft, sorrowful judgment, He didn't know how to fight it. The occupation settled into routine over the next few weeks. Soldiers patrolled human cities. Human governments reported to administrators. The machinery of empire began its familiar work. But something was wrong. Noticed it first in his officers. They seemed distracted, unfocused. Several had requested transfers to other assignments. When he asked why, they gave vague answers, said they felt uncomfortable, said something about Earth didn't feel right. Commander Orr was the first to be specific. The humans look at us strangely, or reported during a staff meeting. Not with fear or hatred, with something else, something I cannot name. Explain, ordered. Or struggled for words. I was stationed in a human dwelling as part of the integration protocol, a family's home. They treated me with courtesy, fed me, asked questions about but the way the grandmother looked at me, he trailed off. She treated me kindly, but her eyes were sad, as if I had disappointed her somehow, as if she had expected something better and I had failed to provide it. Other officers nodded around the table. They had experienced the same thing. They are defeated, said firmly. They are adjusting to their new reality. This is normal. But it wasn't normal. Knew that. In 17 previous conquests, defeated populations had shown fear, then anger, then gradually acceptance. Sometimes it took generations, but the pattern was always the same. This was different. A medical officer raised his hand. Sir, we are seeing increased reports of psychological distress among the troops, anxiety, insomnia. Some soldiers report feeling constantly watched but not with hostility. They describe it as observational, as if they are being studied and found wanting. Wanting what? Demanded. That is what troubles the soldiers, sir. They do not know. Dismissed the meeting and returned to his quarters. He accessed the cultural database that had compiled on humanity, art, music, literature, philosophy, the normal intelligence gathering. But he found himself drawn to something specific: first contact protocols. Humanity's prepared messages to alien species, their planned celebrations for meeting other intelligent life. There were entire buildings humans had constructed just for the possibility of first contact. Museums that had been waiting to display gifts from alien visitors. Concert halls where first contact symphonies were ready to be performed. Schools where children had prepared questions they wanted to ask beings from other worlds. All of it now gathering dust. All of it representing hope that had died when they arrived. Watched videos of human children being asked what they wanted to say to aliens if they ever met them. "Welcome to Earth," one small girl said, her eyes bright. "We've been waiting so long to meet you." "I hope we can be friends," a boy added. "I want to learn everything about where you come from," another child said. "And I want to show you all the cool things about Earth." The video was more than 20 years old. Those children were adults now, living under occupation, carrying that same gentle disappointment he had seen in Ambassador's eyes. Turned off the video, he stood and walked to his window. Below in the streets he could see human civilians going about their daily lives, working, shopping, talking to each other, living alongside their occupiers. Not fighting, not resisting, just disappointed. The weight in his chest grew heavier. A message appeared on his console, another transfer request, this time from Orr himself. Called him immediately. "Explain yourself, Commander." Or appeared on the screen. He looked tired. "Sir, I cannot continue my assignment. The family I am stationed with. The grandmother gave me something today, a gift." "What gift?" Or held up a small box. "She made me cookies, a human food. She said they were my favorite kind, even though I had never told her what foods I preferred. She said she just knew because she has and she knows how to recognize someone who needs care." "And this troubles you?" "Yes, sir, because when she gave them to me, she patted my hand and said, 'Oh, honey, you could have been so much more.'" Or's voice cracked slightly. I am a warrior of the Dominion. I have conquered worlds. I have never failed in my duties, but her words, the way she looked at me, I feel like I have failed in some fundamental way I cannot understand. Wanted to dismiss this, wanted to call it weakness, but he had felt the same thing, that creeping sense that he had missed something important, that he had made a choice he hadn't even known he was making, and now it was too late to go back. Request said, "We are all experiencing adjustment difficulties. It will pass." But it didn't pass. Over the following weeks, reports flooded in from every occupied city. Soldiers were breaking down under the sustained weight of human disappointment. They described being treated with kindness, but a kindness that somehow made them feel worse than hatred would have. A teacher in Tokyo told her overseer, "I was so excited to meet beings from another world. I had lessons planned, questions prepared. I wanted my students to learn from you. I never imagined." She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. An artist in Paris created a series of portraits showing soldiers reaching toward stars, just out of reach. The caption read, "They almost made it." A child in Cairo gave a patrol officer a drawing. It showed a human and a holding hands under a starry sky. The child said, "My dad says maybe you'll come back someday when you're ready." Ready for what? The officer hadn't understood, but the word stayed with him. Called another meeting with Ambassador. She arrived with the same quiet courtesy as before. No anger, no demands, just that same deep sadness that had begun to haunt his dreams. "Why are your people doing this?" demanded. "This constant disappointment, this gentle sorrow, it is affecting my troops." Ambassador folded her hands on the table. "We are not doing anything, War Marshal. We are simply existing, living our lives under your occupation as best we can. You look at us like we have failed you. Haven't you?" The question hung in the air between them. Stood and paced the room. "We are conquerors, warriors. This is what we do, what we have always done." "I know," Ambassador said softly, "and that is why we are disappointed." "Explain." She pulled out a tablet and activated it. Images appeared on the screen. The golden disc from Voyager, the first contact museums, the prepared messages of welcome, children's drawings of aliens and humans playing together. "We prepared for this moment for centuries," she said. "We knew we might meet species more advanced than us, more powerful. We accepted that possibility. But we believed, we truly believed, that any species capable of reaching the stars would have also learned to reach beyond conquest. That you would have discovered, as we did, that cooperation creates more than domination ever could." She looked up at him. "We built our entire first contact philosophy around the idea that intelligence leads to wisdom, that wisdom leads to peace, that any species that had survived long enough to travel between stars must have learned these lessons." "You were naive," said. "Yes, but it wasn't foolish to hope for something better. It wasn't wrong to believe in the possibility of friendship among the stars." She smiled that sad, gentle smile. "You see, War Marshal, we are not disappointed that you defeated us. We expected that might happen. We are disappointed that you never considered any other option. That conquest is all you know, all you want to be. We are powerful. You could have been magnificent." The words hit him like a physical blow. Stared at her, this small, elderly human who had no weapons, no power, no ability to harm him in any way. Yet her words carried more force than any weapon he had ever faced. "What do you want from us?" he asked quietly. Ambassador stood slowly. "Nothing anymore, War Marshal. You made your choice. We made ours. We will live under your occupation because we must, but we will not pretend this is anything but a tragedy, not just for us but for you as well." "For us?" "You could have had friends across the galaxy, partners, people excited to meet you, learn from you, share with you. Instead, you will only ever have subjects and enemies, people who fear you or hate you but never truly want to know you." She picked up her tablet. "That is not our loss alone. It is yours too. She walked to the door, then paused and looked back. We had a saying on Earth, it is better to be alone than in bad company. We learned that lesson today. I hope someday you will learn it as well. She left, stood alone in the empty room, feeling the weight of her words settle over him like a suffocating blanket. He had conquered 17 worlds before Earth. He had thought he understood what victory meant. But standing there, in that moment, he felt less like a conqueror and more like a child who had broken something irreplaceable and only now understood what had been lost. The disappointment was becoming unbearable. The psychological collapse of the occupation force accelerated over the following weeks. What had started as vague discomfort became a crisis. Soldiers refused orders. Officers requested transfers off-world. Some simply abandoned their posts. Or finally came to his office in person. He looked haggard, as if he hadn't slept in days. "Permission to speak freely, sir." "Granted. We cannot continue this occupation. It is destroying us." Wanted to deny it, wanted to show strength, but he had seen the reports, he knew the truth. "Explain your reasoning." "The humans do not fight us with weapons. They fight us with what they expected us to be. Every kind word from them carries the weight of their disappointment. Every gentle question about our culture reminds us that they wanted to know us as friends, not conquerors. Every child's drawing of friendship that never was." Or's voice broke. "I cannot bear it anymore, sir. The grandmother who feeds me cookies and tells me I could have been better. She is destroying me more effectively than any weapon could." "You are a warrior of the Dominion." "I was proud to be a warrior, but the humans make me feel like a warrior is the smallest thing I could have been, like I chose the easiest path instead of the best one." Or met his eyes. "Sir, in all honesty, I fear I am beginning to believe them." Dismissed him and sat alone with his thoughts. He pulled up the cultural database again. This time he searched for something specific, what humans had imagined alien species would be like. He found thousands of stories, books, movies, television shows, art, all depicting possible first contact scenarios. Some showed hostile aliens, invaders, conquerors, but those were always portrayed as aberrations, failures of civilization, the villains of the story. The heroes were always the aliens who came in peace, who sought knowledge, who wanted to share and learn and grow together. That was what humanity had hoped to find. That was what they had prepared to welcome. And they had arrived with guns. Stood and walked to his window. It was late evening in Geneva. The city lights sparkled below. Somewhere down there, millions of humans were going about their lives, carrying that quiet disappointment in their hearts. He thought about the 17 other worlds they had conquered. Those populations had eventually accepted their place. They feared them, or hated them, or grudgingly tolerated them, but they had adjusted. Earth would never adjust, because what Earth mourned was not their freedom, but the death of a dream. The end of hope that intelligence and wisdom went hand in hand. The shattering of their faith that reaching the stars meant more than just being able to reach them. His console beeped. Another message. This one from the Dominion High Command, asking for a status report on the occupation. Stared at the message for a long time. Then he began to type. The next morning, he called a meeting of all senior officers on Earth. They assembled in the conference room, looking as haggard and defeated as Or had looked. "I have made a decision," announced. "We are withdrawing from Earth." Stunned silence. "Sir," one officer finally asked, "the humans have not rebelled, they have not broken the peace. Why would we?" "Because we have already lost," interrupted. "Not to their weapons, to their disappointment in us." He brought up images on the main screen, the golden disc, the first contact protocols, the children's drawings, the monuments to hope. "Look at what they prepared for us. Look at what they imagined we could be. They did not imagine conquerors, they imagined friends, teachers, partners in exploring the cosmos." He paused. "And we gave them none of that. We gave them only what they already had too much of in their own history: war, domination, subjugation. "We are warriors," an officer protested. "This is our way." "Is it?" challenged. "Or is it simply the only way we have ever known? The humans asked me what my people hoped to find when we first reached the stars. I told them resources and territory. But I have been thinking about that question, wondering if perhaps once long ago my ancestors also dreamed of something more, before we became the Dominion, before conquest became our only measure of worth." He pulled up one final image, a drawing a human child had given to one of his soldiers. It showed a human and a holding hands beneath the stars, with a single word written at the bottom: maybe. "A child drew this," said, "after we conquered her world, after we destroyed her people's dreams. She still left room for maybe. Maybe we could still choose to be better. Maybe it is not too late for us." He turned to face his officers. "I do not know if that is true, but I know I cannot remain here, looking into the faces of people who believed we were capable of something magnificent and watching us prove them wrong every day. It is unbearable." "The Dominion will not approve this withdrawal," another officer warned. "I know, I will face the consequences, but this occupation ends today." He pulled up his communication console and opened a channel to the United Nations building. Ambassador's face appeared on the screen. "Ambassador," said, "I am ordering all forces to withdraw from Earth, effective immediately." Her eyes widened slightly. "May I ask why, War Marshal?" "Because we have defeated ourselves. You showed us what we could have been, what we chose not to become. We cannot remain here bathed in your disappointment. It is," he searched for the right word, "unbearable." Ambassador was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was gentle. "Will you go back to the Dominion?" "Yes, and I will face judgment for this decision." "And after that?" Looked at the golden disc sitting on his desk. He had kept it there since Ambassador had shown it to him, a reminder of hope sent into the void centuries ago. "Perhaps," he said slowly, "we will learn. Perhaps we can become something different, better. Perhaps one day we can return to Earth and you will not be disappointed in us." "We would like that," Ambassador said. Tears were forming in her eyes. "We would like that very much." Ended the transmission. He turned back to his officers. "Begin the withdrawal. All personnel off planet within 48 hours. Leave no weapons behind. No surveillance equipment. We will give them back their world exactly as we found it." "Sir," or spoke up, "the grandmother asked me to give you something, if I ever saw you again." He placed a small package on the table. Opened it. Inside were cookies still warm, and a note written in careful handwriting: "For the road. Come back when you're ready. We'll still be here hopping." The weight in his chest finally broke, not into relief but into something more complex: grief for what might have been, shame for what he had done, and something else, something small and fragile that he barely recognized: hope. 2 days later, the last ship left Earth's orbit, watched the blue-green world recede on his. He had conquered it completely, and lost more decisively than any of his previous 17 victories. He filed his final report with Dominion High Command. He would likely be stripped of rank, possibly imprisoned. The Dominion did not tolerate failure. But as Earth disappeared behind them, found himself thinking about that child's drawing, about the word maybe, about an old woman who made cookies for an alien who had helped conquer her world, because she still believed he could be better. The humans had weaponized something he never expected: not fear, not hatred, something far more powerful. They had weaponized their faith in what others could become. And in doing so, they had planted a seed in his mind that he could not uproot, a question that would haunt him for the rest of his life. What if they were right? What if there was a better way? What if it wasn't too late to choose it? The fleet jumped to faster-than-light travel, carrying that question with them into the darkness between the stars. Behind them, Earth began to heal. Its people mourned the loss of their innocence, the death of their dream that all space-faring species would be wise. But they did not stop hopping. They rebuilt their monuments, composed new symphonies, taught their children that disappointment in others was not the same as giving up on them. And somewhere in deep space, War Marshal kept a package of cookies in his quarters, a reminder of what he might yet become, if he was brave enough to try.